Are you longing to get on a literature-based bandwagon but have a child who struggles to read? Does your child love history but resists reading the required books? Are you desperate to find ways to ease the reading load on your child without compromising the content? Do you love the idea of studying history in order using the Charlotte Mason classical method but struggle knowing how to implement it? In this session, I will share 25 practical and fun ways to help your struggling reader get the most out of a literature-based curriculum. So I want to start out with sharing with you 2 Charlotte Mason quotes that I find fitting. The first one is, the most common and the monstrous defect in the education of the day is that children fail to acquire the habit of reading. Did you catch that? The most common, which means that it happens all the time, and the most monstrous defect in education is that children fail to acquire the habit of reading. Not the ability to read, but the habit of reading. The habit of grabbing a book whenever they can. The habit of devouring books like food. The habit of savoring stories. Here's another quote. One more thing is of vital importance. Children must have books. Living books. The best are not too good for them. Anything less than the best is not good enough. And if it's needful to exercise economy, let go everything that belongs to soft and luxurious living before letting go of the duty of supplying the books and the frequent changes of books which are necessary for the constant stimulation of the child's intellectual life. That statement in my own words. Children need to be surrounded by a large supply of books, the best living books out there. If money is an issue, then give up eating out or cable TV or the internet or other luxuries so that you can fill their world with books. Think about both those statements. Implicit in both of them is that education without living books is not education. Both of those are Charlotte Mason quotes spoken well over 100 years ago. It's amazing that something said so long ago is so appropriate for today. My husband and I write a history literature curriculum based on the classical and Charlotte Mason approach of studying history in order and immersing our children in living books as they engage with the history. It is in books where we learn to read, think, and process. Books increase our vocabulary. Books make us better writers. Books make us better communicators. Books help us to understand the world around us. Books quench our thirst for knowledge. Books bring us delight and pleasure. Books cause us to cry and to laugh. Books help us to relax. Books inspire. Books make us angry. Books bring on revolutions. Books stimulate creativity. Books teach. Books challenge. Books change us. Many of us have homes filled with wonderful living books. Many of you have a library card that has been used so often that you have to tape it together to keep it intact. But there's an elephant in the room. This room filled with books. This elephant is so big and so annoying that he's stepping on them. He's knocking over bookshelves. He's destroying all our theories and conceptions about books. That elephant is the child who struggles to read. That elephant is the child who hates to read. That elephant is the child who resists the habit of reading because it is not as entertaining as toys and electronics. And you're stuck. You believe, as I do, that books are vital to your child's education. You want to teach your child using a living book model, but the elephant in the room is making it exceedingly difficult. If you're listening to this session, it's because you have an elephant or two and you're looking for help. How do you follow the classical or Charlotte Mason model when your child hates to read? The curriculum that my husband and I write is called Biblioplan, and we say it is classical, but we also tell people that it is Charlotte Mason in spirit. Both philosophies focus on living books as the root of their education. Both philosophies focus on studying history and literature together. Both philosophies believe that having children learn history in order from ancients to modern times is the best way to teach history. So do we. But if the elephant hates books, then how do you keep it from destroying your model? How do you teach a Charlotte Mason classical history-based history when your child hates to read? I'm going to share 25 plus ways that allow you to follow the living book model with that struggling, I hate books, I hate to read reader. Everything I share is assuming that you are trying to do histories classically and you're reading living books along with your history. So here we go. First, number one, you need to determine the why. Why is your child struggling? I find that the reasons for the struggle fall under a few common headings. Number one, learning disabilities. These are your dyslexic kids, your auditory processing kids. Believe it or not, reading is an auditory skill. Your visual processing kids, the ability is there, but the disability is preventing them from breaking through. Number two, developmental delays. These are your kiddos with Down syndrome or other chromosomal gene issues or epilepsy or fetal alcohol or autism that affect their ability to read. Number three, English is a second language. These are your kids from bilingual families where the primary language was not English, or these are your adopted kids from other countries who have been, or kids who have been severely language delayed in their early years, and they're just learning English now. Number four, your ADHD focus issues. Your kids with focus issues, ADHD, ADD, those kids. Number five, mom pushing. This is a real issue. Homeschooling moms can be very prideful. We want our kids to shine above everyone else's. Why? Because we're quietly in a competition with everyone else out there to have the smartest, best educated, farthest ahead kids. And we tend to especially be hardest on our firstborn. And mom's pushing has an effect upon a child reading. Number six, electronics. And we'll talk about that in a minute. As far as developmental delays, English is a second language, and ADHD, I hope that you can come away from this session with some fun, practical tools in your tool belt to help your kids in these areas. In regards to learning disabilities, I'm not going to solve the learning disabilities issue in this one short session. I'm going to say that if your child is struggling with reading, get them tested. That's number two on my list of ways to help your struggling reader. First, find out what is wrong. I realize that some worry that testing will label your children. Honestly, testing gives you a way to fine-tune their learning. If you don't know what's wrong, you can't fix it. It opens the doors for therapies that come alongside you as you teach them. If your kiddo is struggling with reading or learning in general, get testing. The first testing that you need to start with is physical. Sometimes learning problems are actually health-related problems. My one son went through a rough time for a while, and we began to think he had some mental or some severe mental or learning issues until we discovered that he was allergic to everything outside and inside. It is hard to read and focus when your head is splitting from constant allergy attacks. Once we addressed the allergy issues, his behaviors and learning issues faded away. So figure out if it's physical. Once you rule out the physical, then you go for further testing. So where can you go? Public school is the normal answer because it's free. And it's a good option, but honestly, it is always the most helpful. It's sad to say, but public schools guard their money carefully. Testing homeschooling children and providing services to them costs money they would rather spend on children attending their school. We have found that they tend to test in a way that protects their pocketbooks. You could start with the public school, and if you find that their testing is less than helpful, or your mom gut says that their results don't match your observations, and both times my kids were tested, my mom gut was screaming, this isn't right, then go somewhere else. You can always take the private testing back to the public school and get services based on the outside testing. So where can you go? What are options for testing? Start at your doctor's office. Ask for a referral. See what they say. You could also go to your nearby university or colleges, which is what we did. Their education department often offers testing and therapies. It's great practice for their students and serves the community at the same time, and often it's really good therapy. There's a company out there called LearningRx, and it's a nationwide company, and they test and then they work with memory, reading, and focus issues with children. You don't have to use LearningRx's services in order to get your child tested through them. So if you have a LearningRx nearby, go see if you can get your child tested through them. It's a real simple, easy test, and it gives you a really quick way of figuring out where your child's strengths and weaknesses are. Another option is you call your hospital and you see what testing and services they offer. Check out the local eye doctors and see if they do vision therapy testing, which is a really good option. If your eye doctor does vision therapy, they'll do testing for that, and that's a really good way to find out if your child has vision issues. Look at your homeschooling companies, go to conventions or look online and see who provides testing, who provides services, because most of the time they get testing first. Your state homeschooling group also has resources. They can tell you who in the state does testing. And also the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, they have resources for knowing where to get testing. So go for testing, find out what the issue is, be able to pinpoint it. Okay, so number 3. So we've recognized, number 1, that we need to determine the why. Why is my child struggling? And number 2, get testing for them. And number 3, now we're going to get into some nitty-gritties. The first thing, unplug the electronics. It's a very practical and one of the hardest bits of advice I have to give. Electronics are brain-sucking, mind-numbing, reader-robbing devices that steal your child's joy in reading away from them. How can a book compete with the fast and amazing images of an electronic? Especially for your boys, but girls are just as susceptible. I teach a whole slew of kids at a co-op, and the biggest contender for most of my students' attention is their devices. Whether it's a phone or a gaming device, they are brain robbers. Some of you are wise and you've kept your child from them. I applaud you. Some of you battle daily with them. I feel your pain. In our home, we do have devices, no phones, but devices. Our policy is during the school year, no electronics, TV or games, Monday through Thursday. We just don't have them. Nothing. And I'm very firm on this. Since it's such an established rule, they don't normally ask for them unless it's a special day or we're having quarantine issues. I realize electronics are a great babysitter. Kids are quiet and they're engaged, and you can get your cooking done or your cleaning. It gives you time to do your things, but the hours spent on those devices are hours lost being creative outside, using their minds productively, and reading. The hours spent on those devices steal their desire to go outside, think creatively, or read. Removing the devices opens up the world to them. At first they grumble and groan, but after a bit, as their brains start to come alive, they realize that hey, this is cool, this is fun, this is better. I realize that as your child gets older, electronics are something they need to learn to use in order to make it in this world. It's just a given. We opened the door when my oldest was 12. We limited it greatly, but it was amazing how fast electronics took hold in his mind and heart. And we've been battling ever since with all of our kids with the electronic battle. You've got to limit them. If you have a struggling reader in your house, you need to seriously consider how much you want to expose your kiddo to that electronic. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to stop there. No guilt, no condemnation. I understand the pull. Just think about it. Get that electronic and try to do something with it that doesn't involve using it a lot. Okay, so here's number 4. Often kids balk at reading, especially older kids, because they don't trust that the books picked are interesting books. They determine ahead of time that if a grown-up picked the book and it is supposed to be part of their education, then it must be boring. So here's number 4. If your curriculum gives you the freedom of choice, and ours does, let them choose the books, especially your middle and high school students. Give them the book list and have them indicate which ones interest them. A child who can pick is more invested than a child who has no choices. Of course, the book list that he is choosing from are good, quality, wholesome books, no junk. And of course, you have the right to veto and add to the pile, but giving them choices is huge towards getting them interested. This would have meant the world to my oldest son, to have a say. I was that mom who didn't consider giving him the choice. I picked his books for him to read. Yeah, that backfired on me. Okay, so number 5, decrease the number of books required for them to read. In our curriculum, we have 6 units a year in history. Each unit is about 6 weeks long. A lover of books would happily read a book a week, and we have enough books on our book list that they could do that. A typical student would read about 3 books in a unit. We tell families of struggling readers to do 1 book a unit. That's 5 to 6 books a year. And you go, well, that's not enough. Yes, it is. For those struggling readers, that is a huge accomplishment. In a literature-rich history curriculum, the focus is to read high-quality living books to go along with what is being studied in history. In whatever curriculum you are using, our natural tendency is to pick books on the student's grade level. You don't have to. Drop down a grade level or 2, and that's my number 6. Pick easier books. The focus is content, not quantity. The focus is allowing your child to immerse. Often those easier books are just as history rich as the grade level ones. Number 7, provide piles of picture books and easy readers for them to enjoy. Put a big old basket of books in a very prominent place in your house and fill it up with picture books or nonfiction picture-rich books that line up with the history that you're doing. Those picture books and easy readers are just sitting there waiting for your kids to pick up and look through. Older, struggling readers can pick them up at their leisure. The pictures and simple drawings are going to pull them in. There's no pressure, just a basket of cool-looking books waiting to be feasted on. Will they read the entire book? Maybe not, but they might. Change the books out too. Don't just leave the same books in there. Every few weeks, put in new ones. Show them what's in the basket. Say, hey, look what I got in the basket this week, guys. Show it to them. Give them a little synopsis of the book, but no pressure, just for fun. Say, look what I found these at the library. I'm going to put them in here if y'all want to read them. Look at them. Guarantee you they're going to start looking. Number 8, break from the schedule. The beauty of homeschooling is that you are free to go at your own pace. You're not bound to do the book according to a predetermined schedule. Let them take longer if they need to take longer. Our curriculum schedules a book every 1 to 3 weeks, depending upon the grade level and age. I was rigid. I was that push-in mom. I had my oldest son reading on that schedule. Push, push, push. That book has to be read this week because it's on the schedule for this week and it's only a 1-week book, so you must get it done. And I pushed until the emotional brakes went on and I could push no more. I wish I would have only given choices not only given choices to my oldest in books, but I wish that I had let him savor books longer, give him more time to read. And he was a good reader, but even good readers get bogged down. I wish I wouldn't have pushed so hard. I wish I would have let him immerse deeply in what we were doing instead of tying myself so rigidly to that schedule that we've got to do this now because it's on the schedule. Number 9, provide reading quiet times in the day. Set aside time each day devoted to reading and put the entire family on the reading lockdown, including mom. This was a lifesaver for us and it still is. 2 of my children could drown in a book anywhere and at any time. They can take a book and shut the world out. You could have a train wreck happening right outside their window and they wouldn't notice it. I'm that way too. When I'm reading a book, I'm gone. I'm lost. Reading lockdown is a beautiful gift for the book-loving readers. My other 3 are social butterflies. Distractions make it hard to read. My oldest was a fantastic reader, but only when it was quiet around him. If there was noise, he's going to be wanting to know what is going on. So during that reading quiet time, that reading lockdown, he drowned in books. He loved it. He enjoyed reading. Shutting the house down eliminates the distractions. Kids need quiet. I have a struggling reader, and he desperately needs quiet. He needs no distraction. Only then is he going to look at the pages in front of him. If there's any distraction, he's peeking out. What's going on? What are you doing? And the book is lost. Quiet means that he will slowly relax and be able to relax into that book. Number 10, provide a reading nook that's just for them. Get a special beanbag or a hanging hammock or a special spot in the house they can decorate. Make it quiet and private and designate it as the reading corner. This is where you go when you read. Take your books there, leave them there. When you want to read or when you're going to read or when it's reading time, this is where you go. Number 11, have them read for short periods of time. Your struggling readers often can't read for more than 5, 10, 15 minutes at a time. So set that aside. Say, okay, 15 minutes here. And I get that you've set aside a reading time. Give them breaks. Let them, you're going to read for 15 minutes. You can build your Legos there for 15 minutes. Then you're going to read for 15 minutes more and set it so that they get breaks and give it to them in short segments. Build it up. Eventually you want them to build that reading time longer, but start slow. Number 12, let them read with a headlamp. Put a headlamp on their head. It gives light to the reading, it illuminates the reading better, and it's fun. Number 13, let them read in bed past their bedtime. Honestly, this is like a really cool thing for kids because I can stay up late. I've got a book, I'm reading the book, but I'm past my bedtime. That is a really cool thing. Even for struggling readers, they like doing that. My struggling reader loves to read past the bedtime. Number 14, have the struggling reader read out loud. Now they're going to roll their eyes and they're going to fuss and they're going to gripe and they're going to groan. But I have found that when they read out loud to themselves or to someone else, they are better able to engage in the book and can retain what they are reading. I have 2 adopted sons, and for both of them, this is a necessity. They have to. The one needs to read out loud to help him focus. If he doesn't read out loud, he doesn't read the book. It's just not happening. He's going to sit there and stare at the pages and look at the pictures and pretend, but he isn't reading. Only until he reads out loud. The other one needs to read out loud because he has comprehension issues. He's a great reader. He pours through his reading. But unless he's sitting there quietly reading it out loud to himself, and he does a very quiet, under the breath reading out loud, he's not really comprehending. He's just reading words. So reading out loud for both of them is a very important tool. Number 15, have them record themselves reading. It's amazing how much fun they have reading a section and then listening to themselves read it. They're making their own audio version of the book. Number 16, listen to audiobooks. This is a huge option and one that all my kids have enjoyed. Number 17, read the book on a device. And I know I've said get rid of the devices, but if they can read a book on an electronic like a Kindle or other kinds of devices like that, let them do it because that sometimes will engage them. Make sure they're not doing anything else on that device. Number 18, climb up into the bed next to them or in their reading book next to them or on the sofa and read your own book. Read a book next to them. As they're reading, you're reading. They'll often relax and lean up against you and read with you. Number 19, read their book with them. Let them read a page or a paragraph or a sentence, and then you read back and forth. Stop and discuss. Engage with them. Number 20, read to them. Read the book to them. 21, while you're reading to them, let them doodle or draw something you're reading. After you finish reading, let them share with you about what they drew. Number 22, after reading a book, watch a movie or play about it. Number 23, before reading a book, watch a movie or play about it. And then while reading the book, compare and contrast the book to the movie. Number 24, if they're in high school and they need to read the full version of the book, let them read the Cliff Notes first. Buy the Cliff Notes. Let them read them. Make sure they fully understand what is in the book before having to read the full version. Number 25, before reading a full book, instead of reading the Cliff Notes, have them listen to an abridged or an unabridged version of the book on audio. Number 26, read the book and then have your child pick a chapter or a section and reenact it. Make props and dress up and make the book come alive. Have fun with it. Number 27, read the book and then have your child pick a chapter or section and illustrate it. Number 28, start a book club with your family, with other families who are in the same time period. Pick books that you can all do together. Number 29, have your child give a book review on Amazon.com. My boys loved doing this when they were younger. They would read the book and then they would write a review, and it's a kid's review, so it's anonymous and nobody knows who did it. They thought that was hysterical to be able to write a review on Amazon about the book they had read. Number 30, after reading the book, go to YouTube and find a history-related video about what they just read. There are tons. Be discerning. Watch out for the pop-up ads. Make sure that you're paying attention to what they're watching, and make sure that you're clicking it off when it goes off, because a lot of times that second YouTube video coming behind it can be something you don't want your kids to see. Number 31, if you're able, visit a historical place, a monument, or a museum that relates to the history you're reading about. Number 32, your history curriculum merges with geography most of the time, and if it's classical or Charlotte Mason. So go out and get some travel guides that relate to the region you're learning about. If you're doing Roman history, then find travel guides from Italy. If Greek history, then Greek. Have your children study the guides and plan a make-up trip. Where would you go? What would you see? What would you learn about? They're going to be reading a whole lot of stuff in those travel guides. Number 33. Our Companion and Remember the Days books that we've written are filled with pictures. Many of them are famous masterpieces. There's a story behind all those masterpieces. Spend time researching. Pick a picture a week and say, let's find out who drew this. Let's find out why they drew this. Let's find the story behind this. In the same vein, research the architecture for the period you're studying. Number 35, play history-related games. There are a host of high-quality family board games and card games that are history-related, and most of them contain history facts that need to be read. So those are 35 ideas. If you go on our website, www.biblioplan.net, and go to our tips and tricks pages, you will find even more ideas on how to adapt all the material we have written for the struggling learner. You don't have to throw in the towel on a literature-based curriculum with your struggling learner. You can still follow the Charlotte Mason philosophy. You just need to be willing to slow down, get creative, and adapt.